Hello, BookTube. This is Aaron from Aaron Read a Book or Aaron Read a Book. I've been awful with tags recently, but I do have a tag, although it's not Tuesday. But this tag's actually perfect for me because it it helps me talk about what my sort of reading goals are next year. And it's the Beefcake Challenge book tag, which was created by Big Al Does BookTube, and I was tagged by Deb at Rainer Reads Stuff. I'll leave their versions down in the comments. But this is perfect for me because this year my goal was to read 100 books because I'd never read 100 books in a year before, and I was kind of getting close anyway every year. And this year I added audiobooks, so it hasn't actually been much of a challenge. But it does have that lingering thing in the back of your mind where you're like, don't read absolutely massive books, although I have read Shogun, for example, so I have read some really big books, and two very large Trollope books come to mind as well. But this tag is all about reading big books, and next year I want my goal to be to read big books and not really care about the amount of books I read. So once I've completed this 100 thing, I can say I've done it. I don't need to focus on it anymore. So yeah, so my sort of vague idea is to read as much big books as I can next year when I feel like it, because I still am a mood reader when it comes to the heart. So the first prompt in this tag is just show off the 10 books you want to read next year that are beefy. I'm going to start with Daniel Deronda by George Eliot. I've read Middlemarch and Silas Marner, and I love both of them, so I want to go through and read the rest of George Eliot. I've also got Adam Bede somewhere, which is also a bit of a chunkster, but this is Daniel Deronda. And what makes me want to read this one especially is Kate Howe is her favourite, so maybe her joint favourite with Middlemarch. So I'm looking around because I'm like, where can I put all these massive books without destroying my desk? Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that one. Next, we're going to go with a non-fiction. Again, I've been not very good at non-fiction this year, so I'll try and increase those. And this is James Holland's The War in the West, the first volume, which is sometimes called the Rise of Germany, but it's just called Germany Ascendant here. This is a trilogy, actually, so this is just the first in 3 books on World War II. And I just want to read these because I've never really read a sort of start to finish World War II history. I always kind of focused, even though I've got a degree in history and an A-level, at A-level I did medieval history, and at degree level I did modern history, but I focused more on Yugoslavia and Russia and places like that, and not so much England. So that'd be interesting to read. And Tom Holland is his brother, and I think they've both got nice writing style, so it should be a nice one to go through. Let's go back to fiction. This one I think I've shown off several times on my channel because it's always like my Victober goal book, and then I never get around to it, or my March of the Mammoth book, and I never get around to it. And that's Vanity Fair by William Makepeace Thackeray. And what makes me want to read this is A, everyone seems to love it, and B, Trollope said that Dickens was not the great writer of his age, it was William Makepeace Thackeray. So if Trollope likes him, surely I will. And what are we going to next? Let's go to another non-fiction, and that's the Mitfords' Letters Between Six Sisters. This is a nice big hardback of the letters. This has been a bit of a year of Mitfords for me because I've read Nancy's books, The Pursuit of Love, and what's the second one called? Love in a Cold Climate. And then I read Jessica's books, Ons and Rebels, which is kind of like the true story of their upbringing. And that really, I loved Ons and Rebels. It's my favourite non-fiction of the year. so I want to read the letters between all of them because they're all quite funny characters, really, and odd, and they all lived very different lives, sort of getting involved with fascism, communism, Hitler, all that sort of stuff, chickens, everything, everything. So yeah, that would be really interesting. I've heard really good things about this from Steve Donahue as well. So what next? That's non-fiction. Let's go back to fiction. This one I've had for ages, and I'll show you why. You can tell I've had this for ages unread, because look how red this front bit is, and look at that. Like, it's completely been bleached in the sun, which is very odd because none of the books around it have. This one's, I did start to read this once, but I never got round to finishing it, or I just wasn't in the mood, so I only got a few pages in. This is and then, like, last year I think it was, I read Piranesi, and it blew me away. I loved it, so it made me think that I need to go back and read Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. And this is also set around the Napoleonic era, but if they had magic, which sounds like a sort of fascinating concept to me. And I really like Naomi Novik's book series that is got a similar thing where it's the Napoleonic Wars but with dragons, but this is just with magic as well. So that would be interesting. This is going to be the biggest book snack I've ever made, so I'm being very careful not to destroy my entire house. Let's go back to non-fiction. I have not done this, so it's 1, 5, and 5, but this is the last non-fiction. This is one I got for Christmas, and I specifically asked for it because it's called Dancing to the Precipice, Lucie de la Tour du Pin. You can tell I know my French well, and the French Revolution. This I was looking for when I read, what's her name? Her name's gone out of my head, but it's the author who did the biography on Jane Austen as well. She did the biography of Samuel Pepys. Names are gone. And I was looking. I loved that biography so much. It's my favourite biography I've ever read, I think. And I was looking around for kind of similar characters who kept a diary at the time of something interesting happening, and this is a similar setup where Lucie de la, I'm not doing the whole name again. Lucie kept a diary during the French Revolution, and she was kind of, I think, in court, a dancer at the court of sort of Louis and Marie Antoinette. But later on in life, she basically became a farmer in England. So it sounds a really interesting span of lifestyles. And she kept a very interesting diary as well, apparently. So it sounded really interesting to me. It's got really good reviews, so I want to read that. Next up is the only reread on this list, and that is War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. I've read this before and I loved it, but I read it in the Rosemary Edmonds translation, and I also have only read Anna Karenina in the Rosie Edmonds translation. I've read that translation of Anna Karenina loads of times and I love it, or maybe like 3 times. But I've never tried one of the other Tolstoy translators, so I thought I'd give Anthony Briggs one a go. I did when I read Anna Karenina last time. I think I tried those translators at like the first few lines, and Rosemary Edmonds was still my favourite. So, but I do want to reread War and Peace anyway, because I read it when I was pretty young, and I read it in 2 weeks, reading 100 pages a day, and it was a bit intense. But I remember really loving it. So, but I don't remember a lot about it apart from that. And I really liked the BBC series of it as well when that came out. So that would be a fun one to reread. It is a long one though. These next couple are not as long. This one is Alex Reynolds' Revelation Space. I think the only sci-fi one on here. Oh no, I guess Jonathan Strange Mystery is kind of fantasy sci-fi. Yeah, I don't really know anything about this book, but Alistair Reynolds is like one of Britain's premier sci-fi names, and I've never read any of his books, and this is his most famous one, so I thought I'd give this one a go at some point. Next, we've got Rohinton Mysteries: A Fine Balance. Again, I don't really know a lot about this one, but I know a lot of people love it, and it's set in India, and I've never really got on very well with books set in India before, so I want to try some more and see if it will click for me. And then lastly, number 10 is James Mitchell's Hawaii. I've always been interested in James Mitchell. It's a very thick one. Because I like the sound of how he structures his books. So basically, this starts with the dawn of man on Hawaii, and then it's just like a whole long history of Hawaii. It's non-fiction though, it's like told through fictional stories, and that just sounds really interesting to me, and I always want to try one of his books, but they're all massive, so they seem like a bit of an undertaking. Do you have his book on Mexico as well, so I might read that one instead. It depends what mood I'm in, if I'm feeling kind of Hawaii vibes or Mexico vibes. And that's the big 10, just about standing up on its own. Number 2, question number 2, prompt number 2 is how thick are your books? Measure them. I did this off camera, and they were this big, which is 49 centimeters or just over 19 inches. 3, do you think you can read them all? Yes, I can, and I will. No, I won't. Probably not. I'm a terrible mood reader, but I do really want to read big books, so I do want to read some of these. Definitely, I will. I read I'm gonna read 100 books this year, so 10's easy, 10's amateur. Yeah, no, I'd. It depends, doesn't it? You have to be committed to a big book, or if you're not feeling it, you have to DNF early for me, because I never DNF if I get like quarter of the way through. How many pages are they? Mine are 8,409 pages, and in these editions, the biggest one is War and Peace at just under 1,400 pages. The other two that were over 1,000 are Hawaii and Jonathan Strange, Mr. Norrell. Do you even lift books, bro? Is the last tag, and that is lift your stack. So I'm going to attempt to do that. It's probably going to be a small cut in case I fall over or something, but I'll give it a go. And then the next scene will be me looking really strong, holding up all these books. Oh, I've got them all. Next tag some people. Oh, do you know what? I'm going to skip that. I'll have a good one, BookTube.